I Hate Politics is a podcast about a human activity we love to hate. I'm Sunil Dasgupta. We didn't have much of a winter, and now in early March, it feels like spring already. In this and several episodes to follow, we will be looking at springtime through various lenses. First up, a look at MCPS's agriculture education programs, which fall under the larger rubric of Career and Technical Education, CTE for short. CTE is a key pillar in the blueprint for Maryland's future legislation. And if you have heard school and school board leaders, you will see that it is something of a mantra today. Agriculture programs is not usually what they are talking about. They are mostly interested in nursing and healthcare, computers, automotive, and construction fields. But you will want to listen to what I found out talking with two agriculture program teachers, Lori Mayhew of Damascus High School, who runs a certified horticulture program, the only one of its kind in the county, and to Glenn Miller of Sherwood High School, who runs one of two broader sustainability and environment programs in the county. Did you know that all or nearly all high schools in the county have their own greenhouses? Stick around and you'll hear revelations not just about the ag programs, but also about the rhetoric and reality behind CTE programming.
'Cause I thought my worry could save you. I'd wait under the snowbank till spring if I thought the thaw would calm you. But you already got your boots on and you changed your face. No amount of walking is gonna take you far enough away to make it okay.
I Hate Politics is a podcast about our neighborhoods, workplaces, schools and streets, and our local governments as they function in diverse and democratic societies. This means our politics are messy, dirty, sometimes corrupt, with often self-serving politicians. But no matter how much we hate politics, we are never exempt from it, even when we refuse to participate. In fact, the purpose of politics is to keep society moving precisely when we don't agree with each other, like now. Music for this episode comes from Ammonite, a DC area rock trio bringing jangle and twang to local music. The songs come from their album Demolitions. Erin Frisbee on vocals and guitar, Selena Benelli on lead guitar, and Allison Sina on drums. Ammonite has played the National Museum of Women in the Arts, the T Series, and has been featured by Bandcamp, Country Queer, and several Spotify lists. Their song, Make It Okay, which you are listening to right now, climbed to the top 10 at Alt Q Radio.
Gave up every fight 'cause I thought I couldn't live without you. Let's call it a tie because I'm tired of trying.
In the news this week, the Maryland Transit Administration, the state agency responsible for overseeing the construction of the Purple Line, the light rail project connecting Bethesda in Montgomery County to New Carrollton in Prince George's, has a progress report. Overall, they estimate that half the project is completed. Many of the infrastructural issues that were early barriers are now mostly done, with the exception of utility relocations, which is just short of 80% complete. What is really lagging is the actual track and station construction and other related civil engineering components. The Purple Line is a public-private partnership, and the private partners, called the concessionaire, provide their own progress reports. And they have said that there are continuing delays in utility relocations and have estimated a 258-day delay to the estimated timeline as a result. The MTA says it disagrees with the concessionaire's new timeline, though the agency does accept that there will be some delay. How this delay will reset the timeline is uncertain at this point and really depends on the negotiations between the MTA and the concessionaire. Maryland officials want the new FBI headquarters to be in Maryland, specifically in Prince George's County. But the Commonwealth of Virginia wants it too. In the criteria established by the FBI and the General Services Administration, the real estate arm of the federal government, there is a 35% weighting for proximity to FBI's training and administration facility in Quantico, Virginia, which gives the Commonwealth a natural advantage. But Maryland officials are arguing that the FBI should relocate to the country's largest black majority jurisdiction. Prince George's County already houses NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center and the Beltsville Agricultural Center. The Maryland General Assembly must create a framework for the production, transport, sale, and use of recreational marijuana by July 2023. As of this episode, we have 4 weeks to the end of the state legislative session. There are several marijuana-related bills in play, but the main one is sponsored in the House of Delegates by C.T. Wilson and Vanessa Atterbury. The bill, numbered HB 556, is 100 pages long, and given the rushed nature of Maryland's legislative calendar, it is primarily interested in creating a regulatory agency which will then have to develop detailed rules for the marijuana trade in the state. Accordingly, the bill alters the current Maryland Alcohol and Tobacco Commission to become the Maryland Alcohol, Tobacco, and Cannabis Commission and gives it several authorities to regulate marijuana in the state. I have said this before. The political focus in this entire process has been on who gets licenses to engage in the marijuana trade. In particular, there is concern about making sure that black and brown entrepreneurs and women get licenses equitably. It is equally important, however, to fine-tune the tax rate so that it is not so high as to keep the black market in marijuana flourishing because legal marijuana is too expensive, and not too low so that the state fails to realize the revenue benefits. There needs to be greater clarity on integrity of supply chains and the need to maintain separate channels for medicinal and recreational marijuana. The investments necessary for doing this is going to be hard to make for smaller entrepreneurs, generally minority and women. So there is a balance to be struck here as well. Lastly, there are several use-related issues that remain unaddressed. The most important of them regarding how to determine under the influence. Marijuana remains in the human body for several days without its hallucinogenic effects. Imagine drug testing at work on a Monday following weekend use of marijuana. What is an employer supposed to do? How should an employee be ready for this eventuality? In Montgomery County, the council passed a ban on the sale and use of gas-powered leaf blowers, something Washington, D.C. has had since January of 2022. But the Montgomery County Council exempted farm and agricultural operations from the ban. You're listening to I Hate Politics. I am Sunil Dasgupta. I'll be back with MCPS teachers Lori Mayhew and Glenn Miller.
It doesn't make it okay. That was my mistake. Thinking there was something I could say to make it all That was my mistake. Thinking there was something.
Lori Mayhew, Glenn Miller, welcome to I Hate Politics.
Thanks for having us.
It's really good to be here.
You are both leaders of agriculture-related programs in MCPS high schools. Glenn, you're at Sherwood High School, and Lori, you're at Damascus High School. Perhaps start with Lori, and what is the program that you run? How big is it? Tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. Our program is what's called CPH, which is short for Certified Professional Horticulturist Program. And it's a 4-credit completer program to prepare students for the field of agriculture and specifically the green industry. And of course, here in Montgomery County, that's kind of the number one ag business that we have, because we are such a blend of traditional agriculture, but also with the number of homes, the number of garden centers, floral shops, pick your own fruit and berry operations. So it's a really actually very large portion of business that gets done in Montgomery County. And our program is very foundational, and it prepares students to go into that field with a general basic understanding, or they could pursue things like soil science, food science and safety. With the green industry, we have partners like the Mid-Atlantic Nurserymen's Association. Montgomery Community College has a program in horticulture and horticulture science. So we're really well dialed into employment opportunities and career advancement opportunities here in Montgomery County.
How large is your program? How many students?
Our program is about 56 students.
Glenn?
So much like Lori, my program does prepare students for opportunities in the field of agriculture. We have an agriculture pathway program that we launched last school year as we were coming out of the pandemic and getting back into things. It is under the organization CASE, Curriculum for Agriculture Science Education, and we implement their natural resources pathway. So our direction is more along the lines of sustainability and environmental practice. Now we are only in year 2. So this year we had 8 students. I have 8 students that are in the program, but next year we do have a full section of students with 20 students.
We don't have trained people wanting to go in it. The kids of farmers don't want to go in it. The farmers don't want their kids to go into it. What motivating factors are you thinking about, and what are you teaching to your students?
Farming is a hard life. And in this economy, that goes up and down, it can be really difficult to eke out a life. So I can understand, the desire not to. So how to make that profitable so that people see it and go, well, I can make a career out of this. We are growing the next generation to figure that out so that we recognize the ag reserve as a hugely positive thing in Montgomery County that keeps urban sprawl down and keeps these natural landscapes at the same time, learning how to make it so that those farmers and anyone who's using that land can, in fact, make a living and live a good life.
All right. So let's talk about the programs that you actually run. I mean, what is in them?
We start with a course that's called Foundations of Horticulture. And so it is, again, a broad overview. It is where we pull in the biology pieces. I like to say that what you learn in your science class is on the micro level. And then what we do in horticulture is macro level. So yes, we talk about photosynthesis, but then we talk about, water uptake, what a plant needs to grow successfully, and students grow plants. We work with the Montgomery County Department of the Environment, and we grow native plants that will be utilized in landscapes here in Montgomery County. And they have quite a few sites within the schools in Montgomery County for that particular program. We generally do production crops where we grow poinsettias, we grow spring bedding plants. We focus quite a bit on food crops at our program. And when I say food crops, greenhouse food crops. So that's going to be tomato starts, peppers, and a whole host of herbs. So students get that growing opportunity in a production style. We also delve into the floral industry. Students will make floral arrangements. They will learn about the holiday season. They'll learn about Christmas tree growing. They'll make their own wreaths. They'll make their own centerpieces. And then as we scaffold, after the foundations course, we go into the plant production course. And there we will, actually this coming week, kids are going to be harvesting seeds, like a seed saver. And then we will grow those, and those will be their personal or individual plants. We also do a couple of production runs, and the kids are a little bit more involved in greenhouse operations. And then we have a course that's called Landscape Management, and that's where we talk about how we use those plants in the landscape. They do some basic landscape designs, like how am I going to lay out this bed? The quintessential problem this year is working with native plants and how to include them to increase the biodiversity in our sculpted or landscaped yards. And then the final piece is where a student engages in an internship where they pursue something they're interested in. Some students will work in the field. Some will have an independent project within the classroom setting where they're working in the greenhouse. You can also pick up a course at the community college that will fulfill that last 4th credit of the program. So I try to give my students a very broad opportunity, but if I were to distill it down to what do my kids learn? They learn how hard it is to grow food. They learn that they may not be able to grow everything, but they can absolutely grow something. And then one of our big charges that we do every year is the Great Big Plant Giveaway. Every spring, we do our plant sale, but we really call it the Great Big Plant Giveaway because every family that comes to our plant sale can select 5 free herbs or vegetables.
When is the giveaway this year?
The giveaway will be first week in May.
How big is your greenhouse? How do you maintain it? Who pays for it?
My greenhouse is from the 1950s. It is a glass structure, which is phenomenal for growing under. Like glass is the premium covering you want in a greenhouse operation. So that is fantastic. I'm just in the process of having a new climate control system. So before this year, I had to go to school and chain open the top vent of the greenhouse to vent it for heat. And then if it was a particularly weird day where it was going to get super cold at night, I had to go back into the greenhouse and close that vent. So all of that temperature control will now be automated.
Congratulations.
Yes, super excited about that. Um, and then I don't have any irrigation other than hand watering. And that's kind of a double-edged sword. It's critically important for the kids to understand how to effectively water. So if you have it set up on an automatic watering system, they don't learn that part. So we hand water. It also allows me to do a thing that's called drought stressing. So when we transfer plants from the perfect growing environment in the greenhouse to outside, it's a shock. We want to minimize the shock. And one of the ways we do that is to restrict water. It also improves root systems. So you have better planting success when you move it to the ground. So even though hand watering is like I can't put my greenhouse on automation and not come in on Saturdays and Sundays once watering starts happening in the greenhouse and we're growing plants. But it's a valuable system for kids to learn. So while it may seem very antiquated, it really works educationally. It's just I would really like to switch that auto on the weekends. But I've been doing this for 27 years. And so that's kind of as Glenn said, the piece of working there with the plants and going in an early Saturday morning and you're the only person there and you are cultivating and you are growing. To me, that is very affirming. It's almost like my church. And I see that growth in my students in the classroom where that care is very important.
How big is the greenhouse?
Our greenhouse is about 35 by 25. It's not real big.
And how much? So it fits all that you need to fit? You don't need a bigger greenhouse or anything?
Oh, don't get me wrong. I could totally use a bigger greenhouse. But we can put out about 5,000 to 6,000 plants in the spring. Now we grow in a 4-inch size cup so that we can get as many plants as possible. If we had more space, I would probably size up to a larger pot size, but we work with what we have. And for the size of our program, it meets our needs.
Glenn, what about your greenhouse?
So at Sherwood, the greenhouse is a separate building from the main building. We are out back. That was done when Sherwood had an addition added to it. I'd like to say about 15 years ago. And so now we have this beautiful building that's out back. It houses a classroom, a head house, and the greenhouse. And the greenhouse is
what is
huge.
a head house? I'm sorry.
Lori, could you define head house because I'm still a rookie at some of this, and I don't know why it's called a head house.
So a head house is at the head of the greenhouse, and it is where you're going to store and maintain soil and materials. And the idea is you don't work with anything raw in the greenhouse. The greenhouse is your clean growing environment. So when you are potting up plants or working with soil, you are doing that in your head house, and then you are transferring a completed product into the greenhouse. If you get soil on the floor of your greenhouse, that's where your diseases and your insects may migrate to. So you want to have a clean floor in the greenhouse, a clean growing environment, because we're growing in a concentrated environment. And if you get a pest like aphids are a small plant sap sucking insect, that
Yep.
can just explode when they have the right environment, and the greenhouse is the perfect environment. So by utilizing a head house, we try to eliminate or mitigate those challenges within the grow house.
All right. Glenn?
Right. So there you go. So the greenhouse itself is quite large. I couldn't measure it for you. Lori's been out there. She can verify that it's pretty big, at least for a school greenhouse that I have experience with, and it's a beautiful structure. So we are fortunate to have that. There is an automated irrigation system. I don't know that it's been on in a while. The teacher before me said that when it was running, it wouldn't, the floors wouldn't drain well. You ended up with, algae and growth on the floors. And so that was shut off. So we do water by hand. I have, I have a hose and a faucet set up. We do try a variety of things, in the fall. This year we did house plants. They haven't gone as quickly as I thought they would, trying to give the staff some things to put in their classrooms. But I'm hoping that come the spring, when people really start thinking about that those will begin to move a little more.
When you say move, you're selling them? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we need to sell them to continue to have money to do plants, because the school does not give us any funds for that. We have to be self-sufficient in that regards.
You buy your own seeds, your own fertilizer? What do you do?
We do. If anything, we start from seed. We buy it ourselves, or I go ahead and I buy it. Otherwise, we get plugs. We have an account with a wholesaler, and we get our plugs from them, and so we pot those up and do that.
Who pays for them? Who pays for the plugs?
The program pays for them.
Wow. So you're like a self-sustaining program. Is that true of you, Lori, as well?
That is the goal, yes, that we are self-sustaining. There are a few things like that can be purchased under materials of instruction. And my program's a little bit older than Glenn's, and mine's very specific to horticulture. So where they're spending a tremendous amount of money on, like he said, water testing and other equipment, for my program, the inputs are a little bit simpler. So I do have some money that I'm able to utilize from materials of instruction for pots and soil. But that being said, in general, the money that we generate from our plant sales, selling floral arrangements, all turns back into the program. And then that's how we fund things going forward, which is very common of career and tech programs of our nature, or ag programs across the state.
So much for career readiness, huh? I mean, this is just incredible that, we expect the career programs to pay for themselves. I did not know, and I am taken aback.
Well, it was a significant challenge with this philosophy when we went into COVID. I fortunately was just in the place when we were closed for COVID that I was getting ready to move my tiny seedlings from seed into larger pots. A week later, I would have had 5,000 to 6,000 plants in the greenhouse that I then would have had to let die because we were not permitted to return to the building. So fortunately for me, everything was still in seedling trays, and I lost only a couple of $100. A lot of those, I was able to send those seedlings out to some community groups, some other school systems that handle things a little bit differently, where they were able to go into the greenhouse. I was able to get those to teachers to utilize those. So we didn't let anything go to waste. We just didn't make the money that we normally would have made in that year. And so that's one of the struggles of running a career and tech program within a school system. But what really led me to understanding how people just assumed that these programs were fully funded was when I said that was a $7,000 loss for some programs within the state. And I had a lot of people, and I respect that we were dealing with something that was about health and human health. and we needed to take precautions. But to tell a program that they were going to have to take a $5,000 or $7,000 hit and not be able to sell their plants was a significant financial hit for programs that are generating their own funds. People were very creative. Most programs got the problem solved. It was just really super stressful. And so it is a challenge when you're running a career and tech program that is, it's adjacent to education, it's supportive of education, but sometimes I feel like a square peg in a round hole.
I don't blame you. Glenn, what are the circumstances of Sherwood going from having a horticulture program to having the agriculture sustainability environment program that you now have? I mean, why the shift?
So I don't think the horticulture program was doing well, but the state and county decided that Sherwood and Northwood would have the ag program. And they were told, from what I've been told, I was not involved in the conversation. They were said, you're going to have this program. You have to have it.
Would you like your program to become a case program, Lori?
I don't think it was a wise investment for the county because my horticulture program has been in place for almost 22 years. We do have enrollment coming in, and so I fulfill one need within the county, and then Glenn's program can fulfill another need in the county. I think as Montgomery County is very interested in ensuring that any student that's in a career pathway has an avenue to college, they see the program that Glenn is teaching as more suited to that. And it's a little more difficult to see the connections in the program that I teach. Also, the teacher is the person who is trained to teach the program. So you're investing in someone who is within 4 years of retirement in my place. So that training would leave with me and it wouldn't stay with the program. So I think by having the two programs, we're providing those opportunities, obviously for students in our program, but for the county to see where growth is and then how these programs work.
So fascinating. Which high schools have the horticulture or the CASE program or other ag-related programs? I mean, what is the coverage in the county?
Horticulture is just me at Damascus High School. And historically, I've been the only program in Montgomery County since 2000. We had a small program at Gaithersburg for a few years. In the early 2000s, Glenn's program in horticulture also at that same time was a program for about 10 or 15 years. Then for about 4 years, I was the only person. Now, Glenn, you have to speak to, I don't know how many programs in the county have CASE now, but for horticulture, I'm the only one.
For CASE, it's simply myself at Sherwood, and Northwood also has the same program. Now, there are schools that offer horticulture as a class. It is not in either of these programs. Again, Northwood has one, Wheaton has one, Blair has one, but there are schools where their greenhouses are not utilized at all for a class. And I think that's just awful.
Which schools don't utilize their greenhouses?
Watkins Mill, Springbrook, Blake maybe. I'm not sure about Clarksburg.
Is it the case that every school actually has a greenhouse?
I am not sure either. There are a tremendous number of schools that do have greenhouses. There are some science programs, like environmental science, that work with the Montgomery County Department of the Environment, and they will grow those native plants that I was speaking of earlier. I know that it's 11 schools. I just don't know all of them, but that would be an area, because they are not a career and tech program like what Glenn and I teach. That would be a science teacher who said, we have this facility, we have this resource, let's utilize it.
So in that case, if a science teacher teaches it within that context, Will the school pay for it?
I think that the plant and agriculture based CTE and some of perhaps like the business and accounting have to be self-sufficient. But all of the project lead the ways that are out there and all the engineering programs, I'm curious if the county isn't funding those. Those are CTE programs.
I'm pretty certain PLTW, Project Lead the Way, is county funded.
Yes.
They're not selling anything to make money. I know that.
Yeah, child development.
Child development is probably self-sustaining.
Yeah, self-sustaining with that one. So, in that regards, I think the system talks a big game and doesn't support it with funding. And might I add, we're not an expensive program.
Okay, how not expensive are you?
Oh, you could do it on less than $1,000.
Wow.
That could, with inflation, you may be looking at 1,500. And of course, that's baseline of getting a program started. And that's going from seed, not buying plugs or small plants that you pot up and you grow to the next size.
Okay.
So it's not a lot of money to get a program growing and sustainable. I spend a lot more than that because of the floral component, but floral is high dollar and we're able to recoup that money. And it gives me an opportunity within the classroom, because one of the things I teach is finances. How much does it cost? We just finished Valentine's Day roses. How much does it cost wholesale to put that rose together? And so the students are doing that business mathematics in our classroom.
Is there a particular type of student you get? People that want to spend time outdoors with getting their hands in mud, students that have IEPs or have ADHD, ADD diagnoses?
I would say we're on par or average with the number of students that have IEPs and 504s. One of the things we are going to do at Damascus next year, we are opening up one of my courses that is going to have students in the Learning for Independence program, the LFI program, who are going to be working in our classroom as a dedicated spot, which they're going to be able to do everything that our students, all of our students do. What we're saying is this is a viable pathway for students to be independent when they leave high school. So let's ensure that we are being as inclusive as possible.
What are the challenges you face in getting students to sign up for your program?
So in the high school, for those of us that are teaching there or have students that have gone through there, we know that there are certain requirements. You have to have 4 years, 4 credits of math, and you have to take one each year. Same with your English. Science is 3 credits. And AFNR, which is the introductory course, or Natural Resources and Ecology, the second course, neither one of them fulfills any of those requirements. They are simply electives. So students have to want to take them. And so one of the things that I've been working with members of the Board of Education and some in central offices, can we get this to count for something? And I would add the same for Lori's program. Can we get that introductory course to count for a credit for graduation and give students the option?
I think we also need a seismic shift in the way that we look at high school. We spend a lot of time making sure that we get every required credit in their freshman year and their sophomore year. And we don't talk about passion. We don't talk about what excites kids and why they get up and come to school every day. And every kid should have multiple classes, but if we can just get one that inspires them and is a reason they want to come to school and to learn more. We have students in band, and band is the reason that they come to school. We have students that love our drama or our arts program. And we do have students that love their career in techs, but we consistently push it off until the junior or senior year, and we don't engage them early enough in the program so that they can explore that passion. And so I feel if we're going to say that career and technology education is integral to our school system and to student performance, then we need to be cultivating that in our middle schools, moving into high school, so students have something that they're interested in looking forward to. And they're maxing out those credits learning in school.
Have you talked to counselors about this?
It is a continual conversation. It's the challenge of everybody wanting to get their piece done. It's a challenge because of the numbers that we look at. How many students have completed this course by their junior year? How many students are in advanced mathematics? So I think career and technology education has to become more of a cornerstone in the way that we educate. And that's the challenge.
Lori Mayhew, Glenn Miller, thank you for taking the time to come on I Hate Politics. Good luck in the growing season.
All right. Thanks, Sunil. Look forward to seeing you out in the community.
Thank you so much.
Put your arms around my shoulders until my head stops spinning round. Real to real, I can feel it. Let them all in and the stars are falling. Put your head on my shoulder until my heart beats out of my chest. I can't feel the rest, and no one knows what happens next. I can't sleep, can't eat, can't think straight. Concentrate to keep my eyes off you.
You're listening to I Hate Politics. I'm Sunil Dasgupta. What lessons can we draw from my conversations with MCPS agriculture program teachers Glenn Miller and Lori Mayhew? First, MCPS, and I'd argue most big school districts, do not pay much attention to agriculture programming. Not even when the county has set aside a third of its land area for agriculture and there's a critical shortage of farm workers. Most of the harvesting in the county is not done by locals, but by migrant labor employed by labor contractors who sweep through the county periodically. The promise of community-supported agriculture, CSAs, remains a promise, and very little is actually produced in the county. But of course, farming is a hard life, and even farmers don't want their children going into it. Despite the fact that nearly all MCPS schools have greenhouses, there is only one truly ag program that is run by Lori Mayhew at Damascus High School, and two agriculture, sustainability, and environment programs at Sherwood and Northwood High Schools. Many of the greenhouses in the high schools are not used, though science teachers in some cases do use them. The County Department of the Environment has a program that uses high school science teachers in greenhouses to grow native plants that it plants around the county. Second, we pay lip service to career and technical education. The blueprint for Maryland's future, the Maryland law believed to be transformative, sets a goal that by 10th grade, all students in the system will be career or college ready. But both Lori Mayhew and Glenn Miller point out that the way students are encouraged to take credits, career and technical education courses are left to the end by when many students have already completed their graduation requirements. Their courses count only as electives, and counselors emphasize that students finish required courses before they start on electives. Mayhew and Miller both want to see changes that includes their ag courses among the early ones students take. Lastly, it is incredible that CTE programs have to generate their own revenue to pay for materials. That these programs generate revenue is not the issue. The fact that they have to generate their revenue to pay for supplies is astonishing. No one asks a biology teacher to raise money to buy frogs for dissection. But Mayhew and Miller must raise money to buy seeds and plugs for their program. The cosmetology program has its own salon. The automotive program sells cars. The biggest CTE program in MCPS, quite possibly child development, provides early childhood care for a fee for families. The child development program is an old CTE program before CTE even became this mantra. If the rhetoric matched the budgets, we would improve career readiness. That's all for this episode. You've been listening to I Hate Politics. I'm Sunil Dasgupta. Music for this episode comes from Ammonite, a DC rock trio. The songs come from their album Demolitions. Erin Frisbee on vocals and guitar, Selena Benally on lead guitar, and Alison Cena on drums. You can find them on their Bandcamp channel. If you want to share your music on the show or know someone else who might want to, please sign up for updates at our new website, ihppod.org, or email us at ihppod@gmail.com. I hope you'll subscribe and share the podcast as we bring you stories about politics close to you and to your home. See you next time.